Thank you. So super excited to see more than a few people here. This is exactly what this space is about. It's a collaboration for the Sydney coffee community. We want to continue to do this sort of stuff. We want to continue to have nights like this, industry forums, lots of trainings, lots of events. So this is an invitation to you all to come and use this space. We do have a training facility that is open to any industry folk and free to use. We have a competition set up, filter bar, all of the toys to play with. So you are invited. Get in touch with us and come and use the space. So lastly, welcome to 7 Miles. Thank you so much for coming tonight and enjoy the industry forum.
We picked a pretty cool topic for our first one, defining specialty coffee. I think I need to introduce our awesome panel. Emily Oak, St. Ali, Sensory Lab, New South Wales. She has been hugely influential, connecting people in the industry for the last 20 years. Next up on our panel is Tuli Kaidar. Tuli is the general manager at Mecca and touches every part of that business, from roasting, QA, buying, everything. John Russell Story is the marketing manager at Coffeecom. Coffeecom is a green trader that we've had the pleasure to work with for many years now. Sean McManus, the proud owner of Neighborhood. He's been a brilliant advocate for great coffee for many years now. Sasha Sesdick, man who needs very little introduction. The owner of Ona Coffee, World Barista Champion 2015.
Specialty coffee is probably, it's hard to define because everybody's got a different opinion of actually what specialty coffee is.
It's funny, I think it's a dynamic thing. I think it changes all the time.
It's coffee that tastes good. Good to you. It doesn't have to be, if my good coffee is an 86, so be it. But if you think a good coffee is an 82, it's fine too.
It's a bit more traceable. You have a bit more of a relationship with farmers. You're not just busting out the kind of, flat white with two. You've got a bit more of a interaction with customers.
For me, specialty coffee is a little bit more ethical in a sense.
Yeah, I guess the specialty coffee for me is bettering things at every level within coffee.
I think specialty coffee is coffee that is not a generic product. It's not simply a commodity. I don't think points is that relevant to it. It's something that's been sold for a premium because it's something special.
I think specialty is just a word, and as soon as every roasting company in the world doesn't do commercial, everyone will start saying they do specialty, and then there'll be a new hype word. Like, to be honest, specialty or whatever that higher end is just never stopping, never being happy, constantly striving. Like as I said before, specialty dies the second that you wipe your hands with it and think that it's done.
I remember asking someone about 2 years ago, he's a top market research agent in London. We just finished the third wave and said, what is the next wave going to be? And this was 2 years ago, and he said the science of coffee. And I think we've sort of gone through that stage. I think with speciality, in one way, it's always going to be around. But I think the next stage is probably going to be simplicity. Just right back to really great coffee made very simply.
And we're going to have to work out, what does specialty coffee look like on the retail front long term once the buzz, is replaced by the next trendy industry that comes in, which will happen. The whole shape of specialty coffee is moving at such an astounding rate that I'd be loath to try to predict. I just think, if we're going to be sustainable, and that's a word that's bandied around a lot, we do have to look forward, look at climate change and the effect that's having on that's happening on the global supply of good coffees. Coffees are basically just creeping up hills to higher altitudes to where it's a bit cooler because Arabica is not meant to live at hot temperatures that they're going to have to deal with soon. So supporting initiatives, the scientists who are developing and helping farmers combat the challenges that are facing them, because we're all in this together. I think we have to do that.
I was basically going to mention mostly climate change. It's going to be a big challenge for us, particularly for supply. So in line with that, there's a lot more science coming, and that hopefully that will lead to simplicity. But again, I talked about earlier, understanding the value of coffee because if there's going to be less of it, we're going to have to obviously pay more for it, and people have to understand that. So making it specialty, making it taste better, making the experience worthwhile, people won't actually mind, and hopefully, you know, it'll feed itself in the right kind of way.
We wouldn't buy anything that was, say, under like an 87 or an 88. It's a little bit different now. What we did last time we bought was we actually did a blind cupping of about 40 different coffees. And we didn't know what they were, where they were from, the tasting notes of them, how they scored, how much they were per kilo. We didn't know anything.
I guess there's a certain level of subjectivity in it with the coffees that we select. With the ideal setup that we have, the crazy ideal, we kind of just buy whatever we want. Like if we really like a coffee, we just buy it.
If it's delicious and you can sell it and you can roast it and it's going to be amazing, I don't care if it's $4 a kilo or $15 a kilo. I don't care if it comes from Costa Rica and it rated 89 or it come from Panama and it was like a 95. It's the yum factor. If you like it, buy it, we'll serve it. End of story.
All right. We have talk of measurement, attributing quality to numbers, and also intuition around selecting specialty coffee. Do you see it's imperative when you're selecting coffee to use measures?
I think it really depends how you define specialty. I mean, yeah, for some people are real purists, it needs to be 80, 85 or above. It is a good way to communicate between people who taste different things and what you would expect from a quality level, if you understand what the scale means. But also there is some intuition and definitely yum factor, and I really agree with Dan. If it tastes good, you can sell it. It's good, yeah.
If we're just throwing out subjective language, like, oh, you know, I like it really bright, I like cherries in my coffee, as a farmer, you're sort of limited in terms of what you can do to achieve those ends. If you've cupped a coffee and it's cupped an 83, and you've said what an 85 would require is X, Y, Z in your processing, it would clean it up in this way, and you would rise up the objective quality spectrum in this way, the farmer can hopefully come back and understand and be able to invest in their production and hopefully get a better price from doing whatever was recommended. If we want to be able to partner with growers and give them meaningful feedback, it's probably helpful to have a numerical score that links to some kind of market value.
Because what's important for us, we're cupping probably about anything up to 15 to 20 coffees a day for 4 days a week. And you've got to have some uniformity there. But the key thing for us, because we're dealing with farmers all the time, is giving that feedback. You've got a common language that you can talk.
The way I look at assessing quality, it's not only points and say, well, this coffee is 84 points and I want to buy 85 and I'm not going to say no to that coffee. So obviously, number one is scoring and what coffee scores. But secondly, what do we want to do with that coffee? Like we had some customers that we give them coffee that tastes like raspberries and they don't like it. And it's the coffee that we scored 90 points. I said, if I want raspberries, I'll go to markets and I'll eat raspberries. I want coffee that tastes like coffee. And these coffees would usually probably score 84, 85 points. So we kind of want to see what market wants in the same time as well. And that thirdly is, what can I do with that coffee to make it better? And that's kind of work we would do with the producer as well, that we can clean it up a little bit and we tweak the process of picking or drying or even transport. And it's kind of a combination of these three things to sort of say, well, this is how we would look at assessing coffee.
Taking this to the cafe level, how important is it for you to have some sort of measurement in place when you're dialing in a coffee in the morning to serve to your customers?
One thing that you can get pretty lost on, especially with regards to measurement, if we dive into refractometers and everything like that, is a lot of young guys out there are chasing a number. You know, they'll have a coffee, it'll be balanced, it'll taste fine, it'll have richness, sweetness, acidity. Might not be the world's best coffee, might not be like score a perfect 6 or anything like that. And then they chuck it in a refractometer, and then it says, you know, like 22.2 or it says 19.1, and they go, oh man, it's just not good enough. But at the end of the day, like, if it tastes good and it's balanced, not every coffee that you ever have or put in your mouth is going to be absolutely mind-blowing. Every coffee has a purpose, every extraction has a purpose, and you don't really need to chase a mythical number or a certain number that you think is going to make it taste better. And no matter what that refractometer says, get your little book out, write it in there, and then what you're doing is you're using that as a reference point. It doesn't have to say 21%. It doesn't have to say TDS of 6 or, you know, whatever. Like, all that matters is that it has to be tasty and balanced.
There is a little bit of misunderstanding about the purpose of refractometers. You know, when I loaned mine to Will, the whole point was it doesn't tell you if you're right or wrong, it just tells you where you are. And that's the thing that people tend to misunderstand all the time. It's, if it doesn't fall within a certain number, who cares?
Let's move the topic back in the process to the farm, the ethics of trade and traceability, and the effects required to produce something special.
It's something, as a business, we have to do. We have to know where the coffee comes from. We have to visit origin. And I think the hardest thing with coffee as well is making sure that it's your relationship with the farmer is long term. He's got to feed his family, or she's got to put kids through school. They need to know that someone is going to be buying their coffee, not just this season, next season and the season after that. And especially when you come to specialty coffee, because we're saying to the guys, there's a bucket of cherries, now take out all the underripe ones. They take that out. Then you put them in water, remove the floaters. So they're just seeing their yield go down and down and down. And they've got to know that they're going to get money for that. And I think with most origins now, what we're seeing certainly in South and Central America is this terrific traceability. We have to push. We really have to make sure that we know where the coffee's coming from. For us, it's simply part of our business. Because if something does go wrong, if there's a taint in the coffee, we need to go right back to where it's from.
A lot of people, this is my favorite topic. It's probably the biggest reason why I do coffee is work with the farmers. Being at the farm and actually being able to see the trees, as you were saying, and kind of influence the farmer as well, to help them to sort of say, hey, how about we help you to put some new varietals in and bring these varietals to them and help them to improve processing if that's the case, and build this really personal relationship. To me, it's the most important part of the industry. Like, without these amazing farms, like it's majority of the quality comes from the farms. We can't make it better. You know, we can make it worse. As a roaster, as a barista, we can just not do justice to that cup of coffee. So more energy we put back to the farms and more feedback we get to the producers, I guess we'll have better and better coffees.
I think today traceability has really taken sort of a dual meaning. That still exists, but I think it's also become a prominent marketing tool for coffee buyers. And I think if you're marketing the traceability, if you're putting the name of the farm on a coffee, but you don't know if they were fairly paid, if you don't know that they were, you know, sharing in the spoils that you're getting, selling that coffee as a premium, I think you're actually more unethical than someone who's just selling commercial coffee, because you're exploiting their name. So I think that's a broader conversation that really needs to have of what is the responsibility of using the name of the farmer or the cooperative of whatever. Do you really feel like you can represent that name with pride without really knowing how much have they got paid, what is their circumstance, you know, do you know that you're making their life better? And you know, we ask a lot of questions when we're buying coffee. How much is the farmer getting? How much is the cooperative administration getting? But we're not telling anyone what cut we're getting. How much are the roasters making? What's our margin? So I think true traceability has not really happened, or at least true transparency, if you use the same terminology. And I think that's a sort of more challenging approach to look at the question that I would love to discuss with other people.
With the WBC, everyone's always searching for that different thing. I think it's definitely encouraged producers to be a little bit more inventive.
I think it's good for showmanship. It's good for people to present things that they've researched, because there's a lot that goes into specialty coffee that people don't even know about. It's brought specialty coffee to the masses.
The WBC is that kind of forum where you push boundaries. You're forced to.
I've been involved in WBC for 8 years, and I've actually used that score sheet over these 8 years to become better roaster, better barista, better green bean buyer. You know, watching Maxwell competing and doing his talk about water, he made me obsessed about the water. That lately I was experimenting more with the water than with the coffee. So I think all of these ideas are out there, and it's up to us individuals to sort of choose what idea we see at that platform and what idea we can implement in our business and what sort of we can see, well, I haven't thought about this and maybe I should.
Okay, so a bit of history and context, I guess. WBC came out of Scandinavia originally. SCAA and SCE got together. And their purpose back in 1998-99, when they were coming up with the concept, was to elevate the status of a barista. The idea was specialty coffee is growing, traceability is beginning, the internet was invented. And so the whole idea was born behind, let's create a competition that showcases all those little steps that we take. So we've got, farms and coffees and barista competitions, etc., to build publicity around the barista. You break the competition down into, the 870 points or whatever it is on the score sheet now, and you look at every single element and you make every one of those elements as good as you possibly can. That will have a trickle-down effect into everyday practice. I mean, the score sheets are a global standard, I guess, for espresso, barista practice, for training schools, everything all around the world.
You just have to remember that competing is a game, and all you have to do is meet the criteria. Like, don't go in there thinking that when you compete that you have to be revolutionary, change the whole game. The journey of competing is the fact that you're going to learn so much more, not only about yourself, you're going to take the opportunity to learn so much more about a coffee.
We meet so many friends in these competitions as well, and there's so many things that we learn from each other in a backstage, not necessarily watching someone performing. I think that's one of the magical things about these competitions is sometimes competing there for 15 minutes, it's kind of becomes irrelevant what happens behind the stage, and preparing with your team and making your team to connect and work as a unit, and that gives quite a bit of a culture as well. So there's a lot of good things. It's not as scary as some of you think it is.
What you really want to aim at, I guess, for, I suppose, making it something that's a lot more approachable to people is, you have to think large cappuccinos with 2 sugars are your bread and butter. That's what helps you make the income for a business to then buy some more wilder coffees. To be honest with you, what I've learned, I've just opened a business 6 months ago, and I am so pro coffee. And to be honest with you, in the last couple of months, I actually care a little bit less about the coffee, and I care a lot more about what my customers think. We've approached our roasting a little bit differently to make them happy. So for me, it's about engaging with your customers and choosing which customers are the right ones to engage with in certain ways. So smash out your cappuccinos and leave them alone. And then when people come in that actually start asking you questions, that's when you get to engage with them. That's when you get to feed them the coffees that you're truly passionate about, that you really want to share a story with, the ones that you take a little bit more attention to detail with. I feel like for so long, so many baristas were just like, oh, man, this guy, 2 sugars, what a loser. But, who cares how someone has their coffee? What matters is that they've decided that out of the 50 bazillion frigging cafes that are probably within a square kilometre of where they go, they're deciding to come and see you. So don't treat them like shit. Treat them like they're an absolute lord.
In the same way, you want to have an impact throughout the entire supply chain. If people are willing to pay a little bit more and understand the value of that product, so I can then buy a little bit more, pay my farmers a little bit more, impact the whole way down the chain, I'll do that pretty much any way I can. I might roast my coffee slightly differently because customers prefer it, or I might buy slightly different coffees or package it differently, whatever they need, as long as we can have that impact. There's no point me having the best coffee in the world and the most beautiful espresso bar. If I'm going to be a complete jerk and only serve it to you in a small cup and you have to stand over here and do that, it's not going to work. People don't want to be forced to do things in a particular way. And what I hate most of all is if people come in and they order a cappuccino with 2 sugars, they go, I'm sorry, I want sugar. I don't want my customers apologising to me because
that's horrible.
I know, but it happens. I'm like, don't be sorry.
For me, by far the most memorable coffee was a coffee that Ben Demden made me. It was not just the coffee that really made that special. It was the incredible service, the showmanship, the atmosphere, the music. It was the conversation I was having. It was that holistic experience that really created a memory and created that, those beautiful emotions that became associated with it. And I think, we've been a little bit of a victim of our own success. Coffee's become incredibly trendy, obviously, over the last 10 years. And that has bred an army of obsessives, of which we're all guilty of, being subscribers of. But I think it's very easy to kind of get lost in the endless, fascinating details of coffee and forget that a coffee house is not a place to deconstruct or pick flavors in a coffee. It's a place to feel good, to talk to people, to have a human experience. As soon as you start focusing with that razor-like obsessive focus on the details, on the science, on that kind of thing, you're really missing the whole point. So I think we need to think about what is it that makes coffee valuable, why is it that we drink it, and how did it, why is it that we've been drinking it for hundreds of years? I think we have to return to the roots of what makes coffee really a special drink.
Less eyes down, more eyes up, more interaction, more love. That's what it's all about.